In this demo, I'm going to show you how you create a build on Team Foundation Server 2010 that integrates the workflow and test features of Visual Studio 2010 Lab Management. Lab Management is tightly integrated with the build functionality in Team Foundation Server. To start, you right-click on the Builds node to define a new build definition. From the context menu, I'll select New Build Definition. First, I'll give the build a name and a description. Once I've done that, I'll use the trigger option to control when the build is run. As you can see, I have a ton of flexibility when running builds. For this example, I'll just use the manual option. For workflow builds, I generally will use the manual or scheduled options. Next, I need to adjust the build defaults page. Every build needs to be bound to a build controller. However, workflow builds don't generate output, so I'll uncheck the option about copying build output to a drop share. With the basics defined, it is now time to edit the build process option. This is where I define how I want the workflow build to execute. Every build is based upon a build process template. The default template is assigned automatically. I can see its details by clicking Show Details. When I expand the details, I can change the template. For lab management builds, I'll select the lab default template.xaml item. Once I've picked the lab template, I'm able to access the Lab Process Settings button to start the Lab Workflow Parameters wizard. When the wizard first starts, it provides me with an overview of what the wizard can do for me. On the environment page, I specify the environment I want the workflow to use. Using the combo box, I get a list of available environments. Once I've picked the environment, I can set the baseline snapshot so that my build starts from a known good configuration. The wizard provides an option for me to pick from any of the available snapshots. Here I can select the Ready for Install snapshot. When the workflow build starts, it will apply the snapshot before any other work is done. I'll click OK to confirm my selection and get back to the wizard. Now I can click Next to continue the wizard. On the build page, I have lots of flexibility in choosing how a build is integrated into my workflow build. I can take the output from a new build or an existing build. I could instead specify a drop share with an existing build. For this example, I'm going to queue up a new build. I've selected the Math System build. I'll click Next to continue. Next, I'm able to have the workflow build deploy the output once it's completed. After I check Deploy the build, I can start adding a virtual machine from the environment. Once I select the virtual machine, I can define how I want the output from the build deployed. In this example, I'm using Xcopy to deploy the output from the build to a known directory on the virtual machine. To be clear, I could run MSIs, use PowerShell, or anything that can be started from a command line. After the deployment is complete, I can have the workflow snapshot the environment in its post-deployment state. When you enable the post-deployment snapshot feature, you specify a prefix to help you identify your post-deployment snapshots. Once I've defined the prefix, I can continue. On the test page, I can have tests run against my newly deployed build in the environment. First, I specify the test plan I want to pull tests from. Next, I specify the test suites I want to run. In the Select Test Suites dialog, I can pick multiple suites. In this example, I'm only going to pick one suite, the Automated suite. In addition, I get to define the test configuration and the automated test settings I want used. The test settings are important because they control the diagnostic data adapters that are enabled. Once I've configured everything, I click Finish to save out the changes. After I've run the wizard, which I can rerun later if I want to change things, I need to save the build. Finally, I'll close the build definition dialog. In this demo, I've showed you how you can easily create a build on Team Foundation Server 2010 that integrates the workflow and test features of Visual Studio 2010 Lab Management.